So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminsky Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
What is shaking, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. It's your boy, Henry Kaminsky Jr. from Unique Designs, aka the Brand Doctor. Today, we are going to be talking about a sexy topic, a topic that I love and could talk about for days. And I recently bumped into a sales expert that really will help you shock your sales potential. And this individual is just a rock star in what she does. And we are going to talk about 5 tips to selling high ticket services. That's going to help you scale your business and take it to the next level. So without further ado, I want to introduce my girl, Michael Sherlock, to the show. What is going on, everybody?
Oh, hello. It's so good to be here.
I love the sound effects. I'm such a dork. So
I love it. I love there's an audience out there making all that noise. What do you mean sound effects? That's my crowd.
Even during COVID.
They follow me everywhere.
Oh man, I love it. Michael, welcome to the show. You are such a breath of fresh air when it comes to creating sales conversations and really positioning yourself as the expert when it comes to selling a high ticket service. A lot of my audience sell or want to sell high ticket services because they want to scale. They don't want to work with 100,000 people. They want to work with 20 and make more money, right? Mm-hmm. So before we get into the deep conversation, let's get a little background about you. So we set the stage, set the authority, set the credibility, and then we'll get into it.
Okay. What do you want to know?
Well, how did sales become your expertise, and how did you fall in love with this niche, if you will?
You know, I was just telling somebody this story the other day again, and I had almost not forgotten it, but I really had forgotten the power of the story. And that was my very first sales job. I was 16 years old, and I got hired at a jewelry store at Christmas time to be a gift wrapper. And, you know, I mean, it's a pretty good job. Got minimum wage. It was not bad. But while I was there during slow times in the mall, I started reading everything. You know, we sold diamonds. So I'm reading brochures about diamonds and gemstones, and we sold Rolexes and Yadro porcelain. And I would take everything home and I would read it, and I would just immerse myself in learning about these products just because I was interested. And so I'd ask questions of all the salespeople around me. And one day, a gentleman walked in. It was really slow in the mall, and he was coming in to look for an engagement ring for his fiance. And the sales gal who was there with me said, "Michael, go take care of him." And I went, "What?" And she handed me the key to the, jewelry display. And long story short, I sold him an engagement ring. I was 16 years old. I doubt that he knew I was 16. And when my manager found out, at first I thought I was going to get in trouble. And he's like, "How did you learn to do this?" I said, "I just asked him questions like, what did he want? What was important in a ring? What was important to his fiance? How much did he want to spend?" And he goes, "And you didn't have any problems?" I go, "No, I just asked him what he wanted, and then I sold it to him."
You made it look so easy.
And that started, then I realized how powerful sales was. But I never, for people who tell me every once in a while, like, I hate sales and I don't want to sell myself, I'm like, what are you talking about? We do sales every day. And it's about whether or not you see it as a transaction, an interaction, a communication versus something that you've ascribed to it to be dirty. I mean, at the end of the day, sales is exciting because you're matching somebody with exactly what they want and or need, and you're the conduit. And that's the only way I've ever felt about it. And to me, I just am fascinated by it every day.
Oh man, I love this because it is a lot of mindset stuff, especially when you start to sell high ticket, because you may start to say, well, why the hell would somebody pay this much? Or right. And you're in your own head. So if you don't feel like your value is at that level, then your clients or potential clients aren't going to feel that either. So it's really a mindset thing first. And then we could get into some of the tactics and stuff as we continue talking, because I think people are really going to be dialing into this one because, like I said, this is how I was able to get a lot of my time back in my life and serve at a much higher level and deliver tremendous results for my clients versus what I was doing back in the day when I was just a freelance designer. So big difference here. So I love that story too. What a great little introduction to this conversation. So got a quick promo, and then we are going to come back and dive into 5 tips to selling high ticket services. If you're a business owner who feels your branding isn't truly representing the value that you deliver, check out this free video training that will help you level up your brand's messaging and online presence so that you can start attracting higher quality clients. Visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/level up my branding. All right, let's get into the sexy stuff, shall we? So, tip number 1, when it comes to selling high ticket services, where should we start?
Well, I always believe that you have to start with ROI, because if you aren't confident that what you deliver will end with a strong ROI for your customer, then you're not there yet. I mean, it's great to say, hey, we're going to slap the, whatever, $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 price tag on this. But if there's no ROI that they can see and that you can prove, then you've got a challenge, because you won't believe it yourself and you'll hold yourself back in that. And that's, let me give you one example, because, I told you a little bit about the beginning of my career. The end of the corporate career was I was a vice president of sales for 2 different hearing aid companies, and I ran all of our U.S. stores. So I'm, responsible for 500 people or so, about 100 million a year in revenue. And we always sold a product that was kind of considered service-based too, because you'd get people to come back in and you'd, tweak them and all that. But we literally sold a product that nobody wanted at a price tag that nobody wanted to pay. Hearing aids are quote unquote expensive, as people describe them. And by saying yes to hearing aids, you are saying, yes, I acknowledge I have a problem. So you have 2 huge things to overcome. And the challenges that my salespeople always had was belief in the ROI, to be able to say, look, this hearing aid, it's not about the bells and whistles. It's not about you hearing better on the golf course. It's not about your being able to have the TV on without it being up too loud. It's about your level of interactions in the world. It's about your relationship with the people that are most important to you. It's about your actual life and your health span by having, your hearing taken care of. And so when you can really believe in the ROI of what you have, even if you haven't proven it a lot yet, but you have a couple examples, that proof should be your passion to drive and believe that you can and should charge more than maybe your competitors, or definitely more than where you've been right now.
Man, you bring up a good point. Like, what price tag can you put on your hearing?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Oh man, so good. So good. All right. When we now can establish the ROI of what it is that we are selling. So once we get that down, where do we go next?
So I always put this, when I talk about shock your potential, and I break it down into the letters in the word shock, the K in the word shock is really important here. And that is know your worth and know your value. So first is the ROI on your product or service. You've got to know it. You've got to have proof of it. You've got to be able to deliver that. But the second part of that is you have to know that you are worth somebody paying you, especially if you're in a service-based industry. So you're providing coaching or training or consulting. Though you have a product still in that process, but you are the conduit. And if you don't really believe in yourself, then you've got a challenge. So if you're not quite there yet, then that's an area to work on, because then that becomes the point where when somebody says, hey, I want to work with you, you're not trying to get them to work with you. You're trying to determine whether or not you want to work with them. And that comes down to your belief in yourself and your acknowledging what you bring to the table that nobody else does.
So Michael, what do you say to somebody that says, it'd be nice to sell this for $10,000, but I don't think anybody's going to buy it. Right. How often have you heard that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. All the time. Well, and the thing is, some things you're probably not going to get 10,000 for. Some things maybe you're asking 10,000 and you should be asking 50 or 100. And so, yes, the market will tell you at some level. So, you've got to do your research. You got to find out what else is being sold in that sector. But it comes down to whether or not you have an ROI. If you can deliver an ROI and you know that you can deliver to that person, you know that you believe and you have some element of proof of it that you can deliver that ROI, then you can charge whatever you want, because people will pay what you charge based on whether or not you deliver ROI. Now, if your program is $10,000, but you only deliver an ROI of 1,000, that's a problem. If you charge 10,000 and you have an ROI of 30, excuse me, then you don't have a problem. You just have a communication challenge of how you're going to actually present that.
Got it. This is awesome stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's very important to understand if you're going to charge X amount, then it must deliver more than that, yes. 10X that, if you want to use a round number of value for you to be able to charge that much, or for somebody to invest. I like the words invest.
Yes. And I tell you, one of the most important things with me is when I have, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat today. When I have talked to somebody who's been a client or a customer of a person that's delivering a high ticket product or service, and I ask the person, was it worth it? I mean, that's how I'd ask it of you. So if somebody, if somebody's worked with you and I'm considering working with you, I'm going to say, Henry, give me a couple people, and I'm going to say, was he worth it? And if they say, well, yeah, it was great. Tell me what you got out of it that made it worth it. And those testimonials are really important, but you got to make sure that the people that are giving the testimonials will say, absolutely, it was worth it. And not just because I like him, or not because we came up with, a great new brand strategy, but because this is what it delivered. And the metrics are really important. We all know the language of business is math. And sometimes that's challenging for us because we know it feels good about something, or somebody's going to be happier. They're going to have better results. Well, if it's not metric based and it doesn't have a number attached to it, you can't prove it. It's all well and good to say, I feel good about it. And that can have some benefit, but that won't allow you to move to the next step of really asking and demanding the price that you want to.
I love it. One of the things that I did on my website to make that process easier for somebody like you that's interested is I have a client reference tab in my navigation, and you click on that and it has the logo of the client, and you click on the logo and it populates their name, email, phone number. And it says, on the fence about hiring me or hiring Henry, call these people.
Yes.
Because we're talking,
it's so trust.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. And obviously I get permission from those folks before I throw their name and email and phone number up there. But I've seen people do it 1,000 times. And I was like, well, how could I make this easier for them? Well, just go here and call and have a conversation, have an in-depth conversation with them, because they'll tell you the truth, right? They'll tell you the truth. This is
absolutely
great. So we knocked out some of the mindset stuff, right? We got the ROI stuff. What's number 3?
For me, it's about knowing your brand. So this falls just with the brand doctor. I mean, you've got to have a brand. You have to have something that makes you stand out. And, as you know, on my podcast, I interview a lot of coaches. And it's interesting to me, the ones that really stand out, the ones that really, like I might have 10 people that do small business consulting, or they do career coaching or whatever. But very few actually stand out enough for me to say, I want to interact more with that person, or maybe I want to refer that person. In fact, just the other day, somebody wanted to do some career coaching with me. And I said, honestly, I just don't have time for that right now. But you know what? I've got 3 people in mind that I've interviewed already on my podcast that I believe in that will be a good match for you. And that was, that's about credibility. There's a brand behind that. And I think we don't take enough time to think about brand, as you and I love to talk about it. I know I got purple hair today. It's kind of blue and purple, but
I love it. I love it so much.
This is part of how I stand out. This is part of my brand. Mm-hmm. And not just because it's, fun and wacky and you'll remember me because of that, but it makes you wonder about me. It makes you say, well, what gives her the courage to have purple hair? What did she do that for? And those things then establish a brand. And after time, people forget about my hair unless it's changed colors, and then they're excited about that. But what it did do is it latched on enough for them to remember me out of the competition in times where it might be vital. So if they're looking at 3 different people to come give them sales and leadership training, and they go, oh yeah, that was the one with the purple hair. We liked her stuff. There you go. Now you stand out. And when you stand out, you have that much extra leverage to be able, it doesn't mean you have to dye your hair purple, but it doesn't hurt in my case, but you need to have some kind of shtick.
Right. And I love what you just said about that, because the brand is very, very important for, people remembering you and all of that, but the experience as well. And this is where it took me many, many years to figure out, well, what kind of experience do I need to create to sell something high ticket? And one of the things that I found to work really, really well is the application process, or the application concept, where I was just on a Facebook group the other day, and one of the big pain points was people are clogging up my calendar and not showing up. Right.
Oh.
And that used to happen to me. And I just immediately felt for this person, because there's nothing worse than having a consult booked at 2:30 in the afternoon on a Friday in the summertime, and that person not show up. Right. And have that done to you multiple times. Right.
Yeah.
So I was explaining to him, well, you need to charge for your time, right? Mm-hmm. Because people will see the value in that, or some won't, and it will immediately qualify and disqualify. And so I started out small. I did $100 for 30 minutes. Then we upped it to 200, and crazy, we were doubling the bookings by raising the price. We raised it another 100. So now it's $299. And we changed it to not just a consult, but more of an assessment. So there's a little bit more tangible there, where it's not just a consult. I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step process, but I'm also going to leave you with something that you perhaps can implement on your own, but you probably won't. But at least you'll get the clarity and focus, right? Well, let's just say I have yet to have somebody not show up on one of those calls, right?
And then they have skin in the game,
right? And then having some skin in the game is one thing. But when I asked people, why did you pay that assessment fee before moving forward into the higher ticket program? And they said, well, you're the only one that's freaking doing it, one. And two, it made it feel like it was going to be more valuable.
Yes.
And and that was great feedback from me, because everybody was like, Henry, you're crazy. Nobody does this. You're going to get no calls. And they were flying in the door. So, and then they would then go into the brand accelerator program, and that would be the step by step. And that experience for the client actually helped them. Because right then and there, so if the client wasn't a fit for the big program, right, they stopped there, and it only cost, and it was only a $300 investment.
Yep.
Right. Versus going through all the headaches and time of interviewing 15 different people and this and that for somebody to say this isn't right for you, or they get into a program and they're over their head.
Yeah.
Because
Well, and
everybody
what you're saying too, I can hear somebody's thoughts that is listening right now going, yeah, but then what if I only have one person on my calendar versus 10 because those other 9 don't want to pay it? But to your point, that one person is going to be a better likely candidate for your program than the other 9 that even if they would show up, you wasted energy and emotion and hope on trying to convince them to work with you rather than having one who's qualified enough already that they've taken the steps and they've taken the commitment. And that's, I think, that the key is when you really start to scale up and you start to level up what you're charging, there is a moment of panic for everybody. Just so everybody knows, there's a moment of panic where you go, oh God, I hope this works because I definitely don't want to go backwards. But that moment of panic, if you've done the other steps, you've already prepped your way quite a bit. And now you have something to hang on to, but you might have to wait and hold your breath just a little bit and get over that fear until you realize that it does work. I mean, it's proven to work to make that kind of shift.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So so let's get into number 4. Let's get into number 4.
I think we're to number 4.
Yep. We're at number 4.
So number 4 is the basis of everything I do. And that is using active questions to really understand your customer, because there's a difference between trying to sell somebody on your stuff and having them sell themselves. So when you ask enough questions, Henry, what made you decide to book this appointment with me today? What's the greatest pain point that you have? What's the thing that keeps you up at night? Now we all know those questions, but the key is, are we listening to them, not trying to figure out how they tie to how we can sell them, but really listen and say, gosh, I think that's frustrating. I understand. What have you tried to do about it in the past? What's kept you from moving forward? The more questions you ask, the more somebody not only answers the question, but my whole concept is about unpacking. So I always say, if you've ever had to sit on a suitcase because it's packed so full that you have to sit on it to zip it, then you have a problem, because frankly, if it's that full, it might explode underneath the, airplane. And I don't mean explode from a bomb, but I mean, just the zipper might break and all your stuff is over everywhere. So usually in that case, you have to unzip it and take everything out. And then you have to decide, do I leave some things here? Do I pack it nicer? Do I add another suitcase? And people who are coming to us for solutions of our services have a very full suitcase. It is busting, but the suitcase is not because of the things you might think. It's their fears, it's their concerns, it's their drive, it's their desire, it's their hesitancy, it's their, is this going to work? There's so many emotions packed into that suitcase that it is ready to bust. And by continuing to ask them versions of what I call my tell me more strategy, then you're just really just saying, tell me more in different ways. It allows them to unzip that zipper with less pressure, and it allows them to open it up and start to look at the pieces. And so when they get them all laid out, all you simply have to say is, well, what do you think is your best strategy at this point in time? And 9 times out of 10, if you've done a good job asking, listening, and being attentive to what they've said, interacting with those words, they'll say, I need to work with you. And you're like, great. Are you ready to start today? And you haven't had to sell. You've helped them to unpack. Nobody ever walks into a store. If you think about, I love working with salespeople in retail, and I say, how many times a day does somebody come in and you say, hi, welcome to the Gap, welcome to whatever, what can I do? And they go, I'm just looking. Nobody walks in to just look. Doesn't mean they're ready to buy that day. But nobody comes in just to look. They come in because they bought things there before. They're thinking about some event that they want to buy something new for. They want, some new bath salts. There's always a reason that somebody's made an appointment with you. Doesn't mean they're always ready to go, but it means that they're really close. And so when we help them unpack it and we take the pressure off of them, they will tell us when they are ready. And then it's just, you're serving the solution on a platter.
It's so important to question versus talk. I used to be that guy that just talked and talked and talked, and I would never close. I couldn't close a deal if it was, if the wind was behind me and like the door was wide open. It was awful until I bumped into the Socratic approach. So there's a great book out there called Socratic Selling. You should look it up on Amazon. It is looks like an old school book, like by the cover, but it's so powerful and it's exactly what you just described. And then the simple question or the question that ties everything up is, so what do you think we should do? That's my version of what you said, right? So what do you think we should do now that we have everything laid out on the table? And that's your role as the service provider, right? Not to jam the sale down their throat, but to help them and guide them through their thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very, very important. It's very important. So I have a quick question for you though.
Okay.
As we're talking about unpacking, where their challenges are, what's going to happen, what's the risk if they don't take this action, right? Mm-hmm. When do you bring up the price?
Well, it depends, I think, on what you're selling. And it depends on where people are in the process, because I've had people where, as they're going along, they're still like, yeah, but I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm not ready for this yet, or we're not ready for that. And that gives me an opportunity to say, so, what's your timeline? Because, when we start to talk about costs, if you're not ready for it, it might throw you for a loop. And I kind of like throwing people that number, like, look, this may surprise you, because I want to give them some mental fortitude with it. And they'll go, well, what do you mean? Well, how much does it cost? I'm like, you know what? I'll tell you, but I only want to tell you if you're ready. And they're like, well, I'm ready. I want to know. Okay. So here's what it costs. And you lay it out. But other times, I think by the time they get to that point, and is this really like the fifth point for me, is to verify. So once, even you've got the person, they say, I think I need to work with you. Then you verify. You know what? I agree. I think you should. Now, what we're going to do next is I'm going to tell you about how this works. I'm going to tell you about the time commitment on your part. I'm going to talk about the financial commitment on your part. And then I want to make sure that this is where you want to go. And so you lay it out without any emotion, because price is just price. It is. It's not an emotion. We can't make judgments for whether or not somebody can afford something or not. That's where we get stuck. And that's usually what keeps people from going to that next level. It's not our job to worry about that. It's our job to say, here's the process. Here's the financial impact to you. Lay it out with emotion, then be quiet and just let it sit there for a second. And sometimes somebody will say, wow, that's expensive. And that's when you say it's an investment. You give that time. It's not, somebody says that's expensive doesn't mean that they don't want it. That means they're just making a statement and they're processing. You don't know that in their head they're going, should I put that on my credit card, or should I talk about the installment plan or whatever? So it's an investment, and you're quiet and you let them have a moment to go through that and think about that. And as you put it out, if they say, gosh, I'm not sure I can do that right now, then you say, no problem. I completely understand. Sometimes people get to this point and they know they need this so badly, but maybe they haven't mentally prepared yet for the financial component of this. Now, here's a couple things. I'd like to make sure that you are really comfortable with the numbers that we talk on about what this should be for your return on investment. Do you have any questions about that? No, I totally believe it. Okay. And you know that I have a number of resources that I'd love to put you in contact with if you want to ask them questions directly. Yeah, I know that. Okay. Then you tell me when you're ready, because at the end of the day, you have to be ready for this. And I'm ready to take you on as a client anytime. What would you like to do next? And you put it back into that person's, their field, their ball field, their side of the court. And most of the time they're going to say, okay, I just need to think about it for a day or two. No problem. Would you like me to call you or email you, or would you like me to wait for you? You give them control in the situation. And many times in those cases, they'll go, okay. And I've had that where, you hang up the phone and an hour later, they're like, okay, I'm ready to begin. Just because you let them have the headspace and know that was okay. And they probably had to go and talk to their, somebody else and say, is it okay if I spend X amount of dollars on this program? But here's what it is. And as long as we don't make those assumptions for anybody else about what they're thinking about the price tag, We can bring it up when it feels natural. Now, lots of people have a sales process. This is how I coach and this is how I do it. And this is what I said. Would you like these results faster or slower? I hate that. That's selling. That's not building an opportunity. But people are comfortable with that. So that's fine. It's not the way I do it. But at the end of the day, you're still just trying to determine, is this a good fit for you and for me? Because if we haven't asked the question, if we haven't talked about the numbers, then we're still leaving the elephant in the room that makes everybody uncomfortable. We just have to make sure that we're comfortable with the elephant.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of times people, well, especially people that are selling high ticket, they're like holding back the price because, like, you know, they're just waiting for the right time to dump it, right? And it's almost like you're doing yourself such a disservice when doing that. And you're doing the person that's potentially going to buy from you a disservice.
Yes.
I have a different approach, and I would love to get your perspective. And you can listen, I love when people tell me how it is, right? I have a different approach because I've studied why my people buy. Mm-hmm. So I have a series of questions, and it starts with, during the conversation, these questions are asked, right? And it's typically after we've unpacked the problems and things like that, right? My question is, so how much money do you want to make this year in revenue, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll give me a number. Let's keep it simple. I want to do 7 figures. I want to crack $1 million. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. We could do that, especially if we're selling high ticket, right? So what is one client worth to you?
Very good.
With what you sell, right? So they'll say, round numbers, 30 grand, all right? Or 50 grand. Okay. So now it's a math equation.
Right.
How many do we have to sell to crack $1 million? Right. So the reason why I approach it that way is because when I ask my clients, why have you chose me? Mm-hmm. They say, well, I look at the ROI. How many clients do I need to make or to get to make this back?
Yep.
Right. And so when you understand that that's the way they think, now you can position and explain it in a way that they're going to understand. So when they say, okay, well, I want to make $1 million and one client is worth 30 grand. So do the math. We're talking about, what is it?
Wait.
20. 20
I got my calculator going.
Yeah. Do the math. Do the math on that. People are like,
I don't know about divided by
$1 million.
Yeah. 33
clients. It's pretty doable. Right? For a year's worth of work?
Yeah.
33 clients. Right? When they see that and it's like, whoa. Well, where are these clients hanging out? This was one of the questions that I was on a panel on Clubhouse yesterday, and they asked, well, where do you find your high ticket clients? And so I said, it's really simple. Where are they hanging out? It's about proxemics, right?
Yep.
So there's masterminds out there that are 15 grand to get into, 25 grand to get into. Pay the toll.
Yeah.
Get in there. All you need is one client. You make your money back. Anything after that's gravy.
Right.
There's a strategy right there that's going to save you a whole bunch of time and anxiety and energy trying to get out there, trying to fish in an ocean when you could fish in a pond.
Right. Absolutely.
Very different. Yeah, very different. So I share that with you guys because I love, Michael, your approach is fantastic because it's very aligned with the way I approach it. But when you understand why people are making their purchase decisions,
absolutely,
it's a very powerful thing, right? And it just reframes the situation. Have you ever read that book, What's Your Problem?
Yes. Yes. And it's perfectly, and that's the heart of it. is there are those pain points, and addressing the pain points means we are successful. And when we get somebody who makes the statement of it to you, it's just, they're basically somebody just begging for help. And if you have the help and you have the solution, I just always feel I'm obligated to provide it, because that's why you exist. Now, sometimes you have to decide whether some of those clients you want or not, but that's a whole other level.
Which leads me to my next question is, I get a lot of folks that come self-diagnosed, especially they're coming to the brand doctor, very self-diagnosed. I need a funnel. I need a website. I need this. And I used to just jump on that. Okay, let's do it. It's, 10 grand, whatever. Oh, okay. And then they get no results. And now I'm the jerk because the funnel that I created for them, quote unquote, doesn't work.
Yeah.
So how do you handle folks that come with a self-diagnosis and get them to sort of see the different side of the problem?
Well, it comes down to honesty, and it really, you have to, it starts with that confidence, knowing in your worth and knowing your value, and not in an arrogant way, but truly knowing it. And it reminds me of a quick story when I was working with medical practices. So I owned a consulting company for several years where I worked with specifically ear, nose, and throat doctors, and I helped them to build profit centers within their companies. And I remember one time I went to visit with a group, there were 5 doctors, and their practice manager was there. And they really thought, as we're going through our dialogue, they said something about, oh, well, we'll take this into consideration if we decide to work with you. And just on my own, I said, oh, I'm sorry. I want to go back to that point. And they said, well, what? I said, I think maybe I misconstrued my meaning for this appointment. It's not about whether or not you're going to hire me. And they said, what? I go, I'm here to evaluate whether or not I want to work with you as clients. And, these physicians, they're surgeons. And, I look back now and went, wow. I mean, the first time I said it out loud, like that sounded really, snotty, but I didn't mean to. I mean, I really was there, because then they looked at me strange, and I said, here's the thing. If I choose to work with you, but you don't implement what I'm going to implement, or I get back on an airplane and your staff says, we don't want to do it, and so until the next time I come back, you don't progress, then you're going to ruin my reputation. And I have to deliver results. So I'm here to decide. I mean, it's great whether or not you choose to work with me or not, but even if you say, yes, we do, I still have to make the decision. And I'm going to make the decision based on whether or not I believe you will follow through with what I'm going to tell you to do. Because guess what? I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm going to expect you to do it. And it was funny because as they all got a little shocked, then they started leaning in, and then they asked me really pointed questions. Things like, well, what do we do if people don't want to do it? Or what do we do if we get attitude issues? And all of a sudden, everything that they were really afraid of really started to come out. So when we had the conversation, it was really about me saying, you're not jumping into this unless you're ready. And I think from your client standpoint too, is that it's a great opportunity to say, hey, I'm so glad you've already thought about this and taken a look. I just want to let you know that in my process, I try and treat every brand new client exactly the same, meaning as the brand doctor, I'm going to diagnose you. And it may match your diagnosis or it may not. And I want to know that you're open to what I come up with, because I want to ensure that we give you the right medicine for your disease. And if they say, yes, I'm in, great. And if they say no, that's not a great client for you.
Exactly. The way that I say it is, and it's very similar and aligned with what you say. It's listen, we don't work with everybody here because I don't think I can help everybody. Okay. Right. So as clients, we deserve the right fit to work with the right person, right? I may not be that guy, the aggressive, bald-headed tattooed guy from New Jersey, right? That wants to see you win, and we'll give it to you with no BS, right? We'll push you with no BS in making that happen. I'm not for everybody, but the one thing that you got to remember is you got to trust who you hire and hire who you trust.
Yep.
And I tell them straight up, I said, I've had clients in the past that came in and everything was fine and dandy. And then all of a sudden they became the brand strategist. They became the branding expert. They became the funnel builder and the copywriter and the designer. They were experts now in all of this.
Yeah.
If you have the time to do all of that, then great. I'm not going to be a good fit for you. Right.
Right.
And then you hear them say, no, that's why I'm coming to you. Like, right? That's the reason why we're talking. I don't want to do this crap. Right. This is, I don't have time for this stuff. Right.
Exactly.
But when you lay that out on the table, again, it puts the defenses down.
Yeah.
It makes them really realize that, oh, this guy really doesn't need to work with me. And that's a huge thing because back in the day, it was like I had to take every client because I couldn't afford not to work. Right. And that's where you get in trouble. So that's the luxury of selling high ticket, I think, because now if you're financially intelligent, when you get a high ticket client, you will put away accordingly and make sure that, you have rainy day funds and marketing funds that you're supporting. And, right. So when COVID hits or something hits, you're not caught with your pants down, and right. But, man, this is I could talk about this stuff for another hour. I got a call.
Me too. So
we got to start to wrap up a little bit. So I have a question for you that is a little off topic, right? But it's a fun question. And I didn't tell you this when I was on your show, Michael, but you have to get this app. It's called Poddex, Decks. I had the founder on my show not too long ago, Travis Brown. Big shout out to Travis. It's an app format, but it also comes in hard, decks of cards, like hard copies of cards, right? And you have episode ideas, you have interview top questions, right? So I have the app and there's different categories, right? And so I'm in the hustle category right now because I could tell you're a hustler. You love what you do. And, I could tell that because that's how we're aligned. So I'm in the hustle category and it's like you can't see it the folks that are listening, but they look like cards on the app.
Yeah, that's
right?
fun.
And you can flip through them, right? Swipe left, swipe right, that type of stuff, right? So here's the question that I just randomly chose. If you lost everything you worked for tomorrow, what's the first step in starting over?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because almost this time last year, I lost everything in this business. Absolutely, without a doubt. Prior to that point, I built this company entirely on my getting on an airplane and traveling somewhere around the world to speak and train. And so first I felt sorry for myself for a couple days, stuck my thumb in my mouth and curled up on the couch. And then I said, okay, Sherlock, this is not going to be the end. You're not going to let this be the end. So what didn't you do prior to this point that you knew you should have done and didn't do? And so a couple things. So speaking of an app for the last several years, I'd wanted to develop an app so that if somebody heard me, in a room of 1,000 people and they're like, I love that woman. But by the time the next speaker comes on, they've forgotten about how much they love me. I always wanted to say, and if you want to follow me, download my app. It's free. I have some paid content, but majority of it's free. And so we just got to work on it because we had prepared. We were okay as a company to keep going during COVID after everything shut down. But then that really allowed us to look and dissect other parts of our business and say, what other income streams do we need? So we have changed everything about what we have. And except now the B2B component of it is now running again. So I'll do my first live presentation in Texas on the 8th of March. So that component is coming back up. But everything else we are doing is back to that one question that I knew was always nagging me at the back of my head, which was, there's other things you need to grow and scale this business, but to make it not pandemic proof, but what if you break your leg, Sherlock, and you can't go? When I call myself Sherlock, we're having a conversation. But we really did. We lost 100% of our income. Well, except for my book sales. So 95% of our income gone overnight. But it was about knowing that there were always things that I should have been doing. I knew I should have been doing. I knew I should have been working on courses. Now we're about ready to launch a whole bunch. I knew we should have been working on the app. I knew we should have been starting to develop the YouTube channel and our presence. And all those things, I came back and said, okay, well, we have a few months where we're not doing anything. Let's fix them. And so if I could go back in time, I would have said, of course, you always know what happened then, but I'd say, okay, don't let those moments where it's the nagging thought in the back of your head that this will whatever proof my business, pandemic proof, financial downturn proof, if nobody ever wants to meet again in public ever proof. What's it going to be? And I'll tell you when the next level is for me too, is actually creating a studio in here that is more studio so that I can deliver more virtual presentations that look like I'm on a stage. So, how we're doing that is there's a lot of challenges with that, but those are things to level up to make me still stand out against my competition, to keep our business to be proof. And you know what? Even though we lost it all last year, it's coming back. It's coming back great. I am so happy that we had all that loss because I had the situation where I could fix it. And not everybody has that. But now I know that we're always thinking about how to diversify and keep enough things going so that one thing could ever pull us down again.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I was getting goosebumps because I've learned a few things about myself this year I'm talking 2021 and we're only 3 weeks into it, that if I were to do it all over again, I would focus on some different things as well. One specifically, growing community. I never put I did, but I didn't do it all out. But growing a community is so important, and focusing in on one strategy over another and not trying to execute two strategies at the same time. So
yes.
I have some really awesome consultants that we brought on board this year that are helping us with growth strategy. Then we have our conversion strategy that will roll out later on this year, and to not worrying about what season we're in. Like right now we're in growth season, right? And then the next season will be in conversion, or we'll be in sales season, whatever you want to call it. Right.
Yeah.
But not trying to do both in the same season. It gets very difficult. And hell, if I would have known that 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I was pivoting my business, man, it would have been a whole different ball game. So
absolutely,
really appreciate you sharing that because it really resonated. And I'm sure other people that are watching and listening going, what have I been just sitting on the curb for all these years or for all these months, not taking action on. So I'm so proud of you for starting and restarting and recalibrating and refocusing, and most of all, going.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's been I don't think I've ever felt as satisfied in my business as I feel right now. I'm a little crazy because we got a lot of things going on, but I've never been as satisfied. And that now I know that I'm building a legacy. I'm not just building a speaking business or a training business. I'm building a legacy that will survive me. And that takes it to a whole new level as well.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Beautiful. Well, where do we find this app? Where do we learn more about Miss Sherlock? I should have Michael Sherlock. Where do we learn more about you? Because you are just a fantastic conversationalist with so much knowledge in this space. I couldn't have thought of somebody better to have talking about this topic than you.
Thank you. Well, the easiest way to find me is go to shockyourpotential.com and definitely look up in your app store, Shock Your Potential. You'll find our app. You'll see our pretty logo on there. Just today, we've launched what we call the Fitness Center. And I'm working with my fitness coach to take care of the last 20 pounds. And so for the next 3 months, we're going to have in the app, if you've ever thought about working with a fitness coach, you can follow along and follow on my journey, get some of the tips. So we have the virtual bookstore launching this week too. We have so many fun things in the app, but I'm really excited. So I've said it on, another platform. I better lose the damn 20 pounds because I have now committed this to the world.
That's what you do. That's what you do. I'm down 25 since Halloween. down 25 pounds since Halloween. And you know what helped me? I'm going to share this with you. I had a picture of me and my wife when we first met 14 years ago. And I was in my best shape back then. And I said, I want to look like this again.
Yeah.
And I didn't worry about losing the pounds. I focused on looking like this again.
Yeah.
And I just ripped through the holidays. People were like, you're crazy. You're going on a diet in the holiday season.
What better time to do it? I just got my little bands out, and every time I get bored, I, decide how I'm going to stretch some other things. Yeah. We got all kinds of things going on.
So guys, shockyourpotential.com, go to the App Store, type in Shock Your Potential, go check it out. You will love Michael and what she's doing and why she's doing what she's doing. I'm a huge fan. I'm so happy that we got connected. And
me too.
Thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing backstories and insights and helping people, sell high ticket, because that's going to really help everybody serve more people at a higher level and help you get your time back. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Henry.
You're very welcome.
Hey everyone, this is Henry Kaminsky Jr. again, and really quick, I want to invite you to a one-on-one consult with me right now if you're looking for the clarity and focus you need to build your brand. Over the past 13 years, I've served hundreds of entrepreneurs that have great products but struggled tremendously with articulating its value to their ideal customers. You didn't get into business to just change a few lives, did you? Your ideal clients need you. And when your brand has precision-crafted messaging coupled with beautifully thoughtful design that sounds, looks, and feels like you, they'll know you're the perfect match for them. If this is something you're struggling with, what I want you to do right now is pause this audio and go visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net, and book your one-on-one consult call with me. Remember, the quality of your brand will determine the quality of your clients, and the quality of your clients will determine the quality of your life.